This is Overheard Overnight, and I'm Christopher Mark. The world lined up to buy gas in 1973, and it was ugly. So bye-bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, and the levee was dry. And them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, "This'll be the day that I die." Don McLean wrote that song and released it in 1971. Much of it was autobiographical, as a reflection of what was happening in America during the 1960s with the assassinations of the Kennedys, Martin Luther King, and of course, the Vietnam War. For McLean, though, it started much earlier. He started with what he called the end of the happy 50s, the tragic plane crash of Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.D. the Big Bopper Richardson in February of 1959, the day the music died. And then fast forward a few years, and the gas dried up. There were actually two separate oil crises in the 70s, first in 1973 and again in 1979 with the Iranian Revolution. The first was a war in the Middle East in 1973. Now, North Americans from coast to coast faced persistent gas shortages as OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Producers and Exporting Countries, disrupted oil supplies. Here's what it looked like in the first one. Drivers would go to gas stations before dawn, after hours in the evening to avoid the lines. Odd even rationing was introduced. So if the last digit of your license plate was odd, you could buy gas on odd days of the week. Some gas stations took to posting flags, green if they had, yellow if it was rationing, and red if they simply didn't have any gas at all. To conserve gas, and this was a boo one, speed limits on the highways were cut to 55 miles an hour. To cut energy consumption in the broader economy, daylight savings time was introduced and ran all year, not just seasonal. Again, another big boo and thumbs down. And the vehicles we were driving, they were big vehicles with big fuel-efficient engines, and in fact, they weren't particularly well made. So where do we feel the pain? At our wallets, at the gas pumps. Now, not surprisingly, auto sales, North American manufactured auto sales, were hurt by the embargo as the price of gasoline soared. The industry in North America has really never recovered. A quick sidebar. In the early 1970s, GM, Ford, and Chrysler, the big three, they had nearly 83% market share of all new vehicles sold in North America. Yes, you heard that right. 83%, meaning only 17% of total auto sales in 1973 were going to the combined import market. Fast forward 10 years, the picture has changed. Total share for the big three down to 71% as the Japanese automakers saw their imports of more fuel-efficient, better-made vehicles start to soar in popularity. Now, I drove North American cars for many, many years, and I stopped in 1976, I guess, when I sold my beautiful, big, green Chevy Caprice Classic four-door. I replaced it with a Mazda. That Chevy had a massive 350 cubic inch engine, bench seats across the front. It did have seatbelts and an AM/FM radio. I've never gone back. The musicians also responded to the crisis. Here's a novelty classic from Brent Burns. It was directly aimed at OPEC countries. The title, Cheaper Food or No More Food. If they don't lower the gas, we're going to lower the boom. Quit shipping all that wheat and corn, forget the golden rule. If they don't lower the price of crude, we're going to cut off the food. And in about a week, they'll sing a different tune. Vivid, expressive, explicit. Yikes. That's 1973. And 6 years later, before we had the opportunity to fully recover, we did it all over again. Until next time.